This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jespersen.
We're grateful to have you here with us on what promises to be a jam-packed episode of Real Talk. Of course, we're just days away from the federal election, and the federal party leaders are pounding the pavement. You pay close attention this time in a campaign to where the leaders are spending their time, to where the parties are deploying their resources. And the federal NDP obviously feel like they've got a shot in Alberta's capital city, as leader Jagmeet Singh spending some time in Edmonton, including right here in the Real Talk studio. After we talk to Jagmeet, we'll head out to Ottawa. We've been talking to, of course, Nick Taylor-Vasey. He's been doing an unbelievable job with his colleagues at POLITICO, joining us every Wednesday through the campaign. We're going to be talking about the Brantford Boomer. Have you followed this story? An unbelievable gaffe by a Mark Carney supporter. Could it actually hurt the Liberals? You've heard of this? The double banger outside the rally. Some are calling it the most iconic photo of election 2025. And stick around for what promises to be a very enlightening, interesting conversation with the founder of Amazon's first ever labor union, Chris Smalls, out of Staten Island, joining us in studio with the president of the Alberta Federation of Labor, Gil McGowan, hot off the heels of a big progressive rally in the capital city just hours ago. This episode wouldn't be happening without the support of Alberta's top online real estate school. You can check them out at relo.ca, RELO.ca, where better real estate training starts. Relo is real estate learning online for the bold and ambitious. And no matter where you're at in your career, just starting out or maybe a long-time professional, they're going to help you find the next level. Check out their pre-licensing courses online and make sure if you're signing up for the Alberta residential or commercial real estate bundle, the promo code Ryan100. Ryan100 will knock $100 off each of them. Keep some money in your jeans, kickstart your new career, unlimited earning potential in real estate. It all begins at relo.ca. Well, for 8 years, he's been the leader of Canada's NDP, and right now in pedal to the metal stage, off the heels of a couple of debates last week, Jagmeet Singh trying to get the attention of Canadians and convince them to vote for your party. It's been a bit of a tough slog, this campaign.
Well, you know, it's always a slog for New Democrats. We don't take anything for granted. We're always in a bit of an uphill fight, but I'm used to that. I'm not afraid of that. My whole life's been a bit of an uphill battle, and I'm proud of the work we've done, and I'm proud to make the case to Canadians. Like, look at what you did. When you voted for New Democrats, you sent us to Ottawa. Look at all the things that we achieved. We were able to bring in dental care, helping millions of Canadians. Brought in the first steps of pharmacare, covering diabetes medication and devices and birth control for millions of Canadians. We brought in childcare. We fought to bring in protections for workers. 10 paid sick days at the federal level. All this stuff we did because people voted for us and sent us to Ottawa. So people have the power to do that again.
So why do you think people aren't rewarding you? The polls are suggesting this could be a tough election.
Well, I don't take anything for granted. So just because we fought hard for people, it doesn't mean that, we've earned people's vote that way. I'm going to earn their vote every single day in the remaining of this campaign and let people know, in this campaign, who's really going to be in there for you. We know that a lot of folks have looked at the Conservatives' plan and they're saying, you know what, those cuts to healthcare, cuts to services, the cuts is not what we need right now with all the uncertainty and worry we've got with Donald Trump. So people are turning away from that. And then we got people looking at Mark Carney saying, wait a second, he's also proposing a lot of cuts. His platform announced a couple of days ago, releases $28 billion in cuts. And he said that would be in healthcare and transfers, many other interviews in the past. So people are saying, well, I don't know that's a good idea either. So if you're one of those people worried about the cuts of either of those parties, vote for a New Democrat. Here in Edmonton, you got Heather McPherson, you got Blake Desjardins, you got Tricia Esterbrook in Edmonton Centre. Strong candidates that can fight to deliver and protect the things that you care about.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that. Tricia Esterbrook, it's an interesting riding, and our long-time or our regular audience members will snicker when I bring up Edmonton Centre. It's kind of become like an early morning drinking game on this show because I talk about it so much. I live there. Our studio's in Edmonton Centre, and there's some interesting storylines, right? Randy Boissonneau, essentially, we assume, told by Mark Carney that he couldn't seek re-election, the embattled former cabinet minister. Kind of an interesting conservative storyline there. James Cumming was MP, but kind of got scooped, got surprised, I think, in the nomination race. So you've got a relative unknown, Saeed Ahmed, running for the Conservatives. And then Tricia Esterbrook's probably with the most name recognition of the three candidates. But you got all the progressives, or maybe not all, but a lot of the progressives in Edmonton Centre saying vote strategically. lend your vote to the Liberals. We got to have a cabinet minister if Carney wins in Edmonton. What's your message to those progressive voters?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that like what you've seen from Mark Carney so far is that, and what we've seen in the history of our country is Ottawa works best when one party doesn't have all the power. Like people who are progressive, people who care about, taking better care of each other, have seen that in the history of our country, everything that we're proud of. When we say we don't want to be the 51st state, we're proud of Canada, what is the first thing people think of? They think of healthcare. That was Tommy Douglas, New Democrats, who delivered it. People think of pensions. Again, New Democrats who fought for that in a minority setting. You think about old age security. You think about all the things, employment insurance, all the things that we think are good social programs. They only came in when New Democrats were there to force the Liberals. So I would say people would be better served by having a New Democrat to push and force the government to move forward on things. Mark Carney's already said he's not going to move forward on pharmacare. He said, I'm going to stop it in its tracks. A lot of people in Edmonton think that it's a good idea to have medication covered as a part of our healthcare system. And with the trade wars and the potential risk of our healthcare expenses going up because Donald Trump wants to make more money for his American billionaires and the pharmaceutical companies out there, it's a good time to say, well, let's make sure medication is not one of those worries. And so if you want to expand these things, you want to push forward on things, you want to force the government to act, New Democrats are the option.
Kind of a double-edged sword for you and for the party, isn't it? Because you'll point to the list of what you present as your accomplishments or the things that you helped happen. Dental care, pharmacare, you're talking about this. And at the same time, your critics will say, well, it was because of you. It was because of the NDP that Justin Trudeau and the Liberals were able to maintain power for so long. You might get credit for some people. At the same time, other people will look to you and say, you guys were part of the problem. Why would they trust you now?
Well, what do we do with power is the real question. Like when we have power, we use it for people, and we fought to deliver really concrete things that haven't happened in a generation in our country, expanding healthcare, like to get millions of seniors. I mentioned to you on the way in, at the rally last night, we had Rachel Notley there. We had a lot of excitement. Chris Smalls actually made an appearance at the end of it, which was awesome. And I had a senior who had his dental care card with him, and he whipped it out and said, "This is my dental care card. I'm so proud to have this. I want my daughter to get it as well." He's got an adult daughter. And I'm like, yeah, I'm fighting for that too. That's going to happen hopefully by the next month. And he asked me to sign his card for him. He's like, it's because of you I got this. I got my dentures. I got my teeth looked after, all because of you and the NDP. And so that's why we did all of this, right? Like when we look at what do the Conservatives do in a minority government, they delivered nothing for people. There's 30 MPs in Alberta that are Conservative. They delivered nothing for Albertans in 2 or 3 years of a minority government. Just 2 Albertan New Democrats delivered more concrete changes in people's lives than 30 Conservative MPs. So if you talk about getting stuff done, that's what we did. If people want to see deliverables, things actually change, we're the ones that do that.
Why do you think that hasn't resonated in the polls? Why do you think the guy that comes up to you and says, sign this? I mean, that's like your modern day version of Tommy Douglas. I know you're not saying that.
No.
The guy's asking you to sign the card. I would imagine for you personally, that would be a pretty big moment. That would be pretty significant. That fills your bucket, as we say. But you're not polling at 35%, where I know you'd like to be 40%.
Yeah, we love that. Yeah, I mean, things go up, things go down. Who knows why exactly what's informing people's reasons.
But it's got to be frustrating.
Well, the thing is that I think it's hard to understand because for New Democrats, this is why we exist. We exist to make people's lives better. I would love to win more seats. Of course, I'm the leader of the party. I want to grow the party. But ultimately, our measure of success is have we actually improved people's lives? Have we done something that people will leave because of our work, where people will be better off than we found them? And yeah, seniors, kids, I've met so many kids whose parents are I would have never been able to go to the dentist, never. And these kids are happier, healthier, better off because they were able to get their teeth looked after. Some kids, one parent I met, remember telling me her son had this rare condition that would have never been caught but for the fact that he was able to go to the dentist. Now he's going to be fine because they caught it early. He's going to be healthy. He's going to be happy. And so just these are the things that this is why I do what I do. I remember this kid that I met, and this story is just emblazed in my heart. I met this kid when I first became leader, 2017. We were in Center Block back when it was still open, and him and his dad were there, and they wanted a meeting with me, and they set up the meeting, and so we were there, and he said, I have type 1 diabetes, 10-year-old kid. And he's like, I got to live with all these injections and blood tests. And so this is the incurable early onset diabetes that some people get. And it's just genetic, nothing to do with diet or anything. You just get it.
Sure.
So he's like, yeah, I have to do all these things, these injections. I got to monitor and otherwise I might die. I'm like, wow, this is a heavy conversation with a 10-year-old. I'm like, how does that feel? He's like, oh, I'm fine. I got this. I got the disease. I got this illness. But I am worried about how much my medication costs my dad. I'm worried about being a burden on my parents. I'm like, this 10-year-old kid feels like he's a burden. And I promised him, I said, I'm going to fight to make sure you don't feel like a burden. And it's rare. I mean, you can bring the fight, but it's rare you can actually solve the problem sometimes in politics, especially in opposition. To that kid, I made a promise and I delivered on that promise. Now, diabetes medication and devices are free for any province that signs up. And 3 have already signed up: BC, Manitoba, and PEI. So I don't remember where that kid came from, but if he's in one of those 3 provinces, he's getting free diabetes medication, not because of us.
How is campaigning? I mean, Alberta, we're used to it in Alberta. Alberta will be the last to sign on to pretty much anything. And typically it's presented in the province of Alberta as fighting to get a better deal. And we've seen that on childcare. We've seen that on a lot of things. The Premier was the last to sort of reluctantly get on board, even with the coast to coast to coast efforts to deal with the Trump White House early when that happened. How do you campaign differently in Alberta, or how is Alberta different than the rest of the country in your unique experience as a party leader?
Well, I mean, Daniel Smith is actually one of the best reasons why people don't want to vote Conservative. They look at Daniel Smith and say, wow, I don't want that. And I just point to them like, look at your healthcare, look at what's going on with education. Let's go on. You got the worst education level funding. You got some of the worst outcomes in healthcare. I mean, this is what you get with a Conservative. And people are like, yeah, I don't want that. So looking at Daniel Smith is one of the best ways for us to campaign here in Edmonton, especially. People say, yeah, we see that and we don't want that. That's not good for our country. That's not good for our families. It's not good for me personally. Don't want that.
Pierre Poilievre is running on, I guess you could probably call it a populist economic message. Why do you think that appears to be resonating more strongly with Canadians than yours?
I think, his message maybe is resonating with his base, but he's not growing it. It's not like, regular folks in downtown Vancouver, downtown Toronto are really thinking that this is he's not getting his message out to Montreal. Major urban centers in this country aren't yeah, great idea. And I think it's because what he's really saying is you're on your own. His philosophical offer to Canadians is, I'm going to cut your taxes and save you about $2,000. And that's true. He's costed out the numbers. He's going to save people on average about $2,000 a year on their taxes. But he wants to cut childcare, which is $10,000 a year for some families. He wants to cut pharmacare, which is thousands of dollars a year of saving. He wants to cut dental care, which is, again, thousands of dollars. So his math is, I'm going to save you $2,000 on one hand, but I'm going to cut tens of thousands of dollars of benefits and services that you receive on the other. People are looking at that math and saying, well, that math doesn't math. That's not a good deal for me. I'm a mom with kids that I need to get into daycare. That's $10,000. You're going to cut that and give me a $2,000 check? That's not really going to help me. You got a senior who's I get to go to a dentist now and get dentures and cleanings, and that's thousands of dollars. You're going to save me a couple thousand to lose me thousands more. That's not really a good deal for me. So a lot of people are looking at his math and saying, well, if I'm super rich, great. Yeah, if I'm a billionaire, that's a good deal for me. But if I'm a regular everyday person, your plan is just going to make my life harder. So no, I don't want that.
You saw the story, IBEW, Local 568, representing workers across Quebec, led by Guy Fournier, has come out over the weekend saying that they're endorsing or voting for Pierre Poilievre because they think that the next PM of Canada should offer hope for a better future, not fear and empty promises. Obviously, the union roots very strong with the NDP, but some of the private sector unions in particular appear to be shifting a little more right. Are you, as the party, losing the working class?
Well, we look at all the endorsements we've received. If you tally up the United Steelworkers, the CUPE endorsements, we've got millions of workers that have endorsed us. The PSAC workers, there's way more workers that are endorsing us in a scale that's not even comparable. He's got a couple of smaller groups that are supporting him. Sure, it's fine. We've got the masses of workers that are saying this is a party that has our interest, that has always had our interest. In terms of workers' rights, Pierre Poilievre made no really secret about it. When he first got elected, he said, I'm going to bring in right-to-work laws to Canada. And right-to-work laws are anti-union, anti-worker, and he backed that up. He voted against minimum wage increases. He voted against union rights. He voted to weaken workers' rights. That's his track record. So for everyday workers who are in the movement, know that he is not a friend of them.
There's a lot of talk about your political future or your future maybe outside of politics across the country. I'm sure that's not the number one thing you're thinking about right now, and you're about to tell me that that's not the number one thing that you're thinking about. But if your party loses seats during the election, or if you were to lose your own riding, or if a scenario were to unfold that would be a nightmare basically for you, would you step down as party leader, or are you thinking about your future?
No, I'm thinking about right in front of me what's going on. I'm thinking about the fact we got 5 days left on this campaign, and I'm focused on running hard for those next 6 days.
Yeah.
We're going to go crisscross the country one more time and let people know they got a choice. I mean, who's really in it for you and who's in it for the millionaires and the billionaires? Like, I look at the platforms as a concrete example. It kind of tells you who's in it for what. And Pierre Poilievre's platform, one of the biggest expenses, $19 billion he's spending. He's spending $19 billion on a tax cut that really mostly helps people who earn $1.4 million or more. That's that capital gains change. So it really helps a small percentage of Canadians, and mostly those who earn over $1 million. And he's going to spend $19 billion to make that happen. Mark Carney also wants to do the same thing. He's spending $19 billion as well on that same tax cut. It's a $19 billion cost, helping a very small number of Canadians, and mostly, again, those who earn over $1 million. And they're both proposing cuts to services, cuts to healthcare. That does not sound like a plan that's in it for everyday folks. I'm in it for you. I'm in it for workers. I'm in it for middle-class folks. I'm in it for the regular folks that say, hey, I need someone that's going to fight for me. I'm your guy. If you want someone that's going to fight for everyday families, we've shown you again and again that's who we fight for.
You've talked a lot about taxing the ultra-rich, but have yet to make it happen. Maybe not number one on your list of priorities, but when you look at the numbers that economists say certain policies could produce for the government's bottom line, it's significant. Take us behind the curtain in your negotiations with the Trudeau Liberals, or your general observations? Is that not feasible? Why didn't that happen?
Yeah, no, we got a couple of those in. We got a tax change on big banks, which we asked. We were able to increase the amount that big banks are charged. And insurance companies, big insurance companies and big banks had an increase in their tax rate. So that's something we fought for and delivered. And in our platform now, we're laying out, there's billionaires and super wealthy folks in Canada, the richest of the richest, that could contribute a little bit more, and we can get a massive increase in revenue. So we laid out a wealth tax on really like the richest of the richest in Canada, and just a little bit of an increase, like a 1% to 2% to 3% increase on a sliding scale based on how much the fortune that you have. For the wealthiest Canadians, that could raise a significant amount of revenue, and we put that forward in our platform.
All right, in closing, appreciate your time today.
Yeah.
Ken Bosencool, Conservative commentator, was Chief of Staff for Premier Christy Clark back in the day, a Harper guy. He was on the show late last week, ahead of the debates. And he's saying, Jagmeet, he's saying he's got to focus his efforts here. And essentially, you got to attack Mark Carney. He says, if you're attacking Pierre Poilievre, you're convincing people to vote for Carney. Carney, your biggest enemy in the campaign. So a lot of people were wondering about your strategy here. And Blasheep is watching us in our live chat now, powered by Park Power. And Blasheep, we'll close by asking about your debate strategy, because I think it's fascinating stuff. He wonders, why did you only interrupt Pierre Poilievre during the debate and not Mark Carney? He says 3 minutes or more shows you talking over him. What was your strategy? Where was your head at? And ultimately, how did you feel once the dust settled after the debates?
Yeah, I fought both of them. I took them both on in aggressive ways. I felt like I wanted to fight someone, Pierre and I are the same age, same kind of, we can both bring a lot of energy. So I wanted to take him on with the same kind of ferocity. He attacks people all the time. He's known as an attack dog. So I wanted to show I can go toe-to-toe with him. So for progressives out there who are worried, could I take on a conservative? Yeah, hell yeah. I can fight. I'm a scrapper. I fought my whole life. You could see me taking him on.
You almost fought that guy in Ottawa about 6 months ago.
Well, I'm a scrapper from Windsor, so you grow up a certain way. And I also took on Mark Carney and called out the fact that, he profited off of the housing crisis. He's not a guy that's going to fix the housing crisis. I called out the fact that he wants to cut the things that people need at a time when people are worried and feeling precarious and feeling a lot of anxiety, that cutting healthcare is the wrong thing to do. So I took them both on, different approaches for each one. And I brought the energy that Pierre likes to, bully people, intimidate people. I'm like, let's see how you do that with me. And he couldn't take that heat. And I took on Mark Carney in a different way, but also just as passionately. I called him out for his cuts, called him out for his lack of priority. And I'm inviting progressives to see, I can fight conservatives, but I can also force liberals to do what you need them to do, which is to actually remember people. And they often forget about you when they're in power.
Where are you off to next?
We're going to Winnipeg next.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Good stuff. Well, listen, ahead of your travel day, thanks for making time for us. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Yeah, that's the leader of Canada's New Democrats, Jagmeet Singh. Let us know what you think about the interview to talk@ryanjespersen.com. Hey, speaking of that debate, what a blast we had at Arcadia Brewing Company on debate night, along with our Real Talk patrons, our Real Talk Patreon supporters, an exclusive opportunity for everybody to get together and hang out and take in what the federal party leaders had to say. All of it catered by our friends at Friesen Brothers. We had some fantastic turnout there. Great to put some faces to names, names to faces, and of course, to kick the ball around a little bit. What did everybody think of that strategy? What did everybody think of that back and forth? Friesen Brothers kept us well fed. We're going to be showing you video through this week of that spread out there. Unbelievable stuff. They had the samosas going. They had the chicken kebabs, a beautiful charcuterie platter. If you follow me on Instagram, you saw it all over my Instagram stories. They can do the same for you anytime, no matter the size of the gathering, 10 people, 1,000 people, whatever it is, cateringbyfriesen.com, your number one destination for catering in the province of Alberta. Hey, if you're unemployed right now, underemployed, or maybe just uninspired at your current job, Solar by Kuby would love to talk to you. Check out their website, kuby.ca. That's kuby.ca. Under the Solar by Kuby link, you'll find their careers link in Calgary, Edmonton, Lethbridge, Kamloops, Kelowna. They currently have job opportunities, and they'd love to hear from you. If you're a person that brings energy to whatever workplace you're at, if you're a person that shoots for the stars, that's never satisfied or complacent, if you're somebody that loves being in a team atmosphere, Kuby could be the next big step in your career journey. Again, that's kuby.ca/solar/careers. Get started today at Solar by Kuby. All right, we're going to rip over to Ottawa real quick and then sit down with, I think you can call him Union Hero. I almost said icon. We'll ask Chris Smalls what people say to him when they meet him in person. This is the guy in Staten Island that organized the first ever Amazon labor union. He's going to be coming up with Gil McGowan right after we check in with Nick, and a really remarkable achievement. You talk about kind of the little guy, or you look at like the world's biggest companies going up against Amazon and starting a union. What did Chris learn from that? What does he share to people? He's here to deliver a keynote this weekend at the annual AFL convention. Every Wednesday through the campaign, we've been hanging out with our friends at Politico. Last week, it was Mickey Jurek from a Quebec town with a fascinating story on how the town's library has become a metaphor for the Canada-U.S. border dispute. And today, we're back to their Ottawa bureau chief. That's Nick Taylor-Vasey, who joins us from the nation's capital. Nice to see your smiling face, and I know for a fact that has everything to do with the Toronto Maple Leafs up 2 against the Ottawa Senators. What a game last night, Johnny. We got a big Leafs
series.
fan in the house here. How are you feeling, pal?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm happy, but as any Leaf fan will admit, whether they're proudly admitting it or just like in some shame acknowledging it, I have many conditions on my happiness. 2-0
It's
in
in
a
the
playoff
back.
series.
It's in the back of
means
your
nothing
head.
to us.
It's in the back of your head, isn't it, Nick?
Oh, it's not in the back of my head. It's front of mine.
I can feel the nerves. The nerves are palpable right now. I mean, you can feel this energy with Jagmeet Singh here. He's got like 5 days to go until the big election, and here you are. I don't know if Leafs fans, would you rather be up 2-0 or would you rather have your backs against the wall? I don't know. You seem more nervous up 2 games.
I think the thing that I have in common with Jagmeet Singh this week is that hope springs eternal. You know, like he's hoping to grind out some wins, and I'm hoping my guys can grind out some wins. I'm not used to them doing that. I'm not used to them winning a series. But again, this is a good team.
Yeah.
Good team.
Yeah. Hey, listen, we wish you well. We just want to see every other team in the Stanley Cup playoffs beat each other up over 7-game series.
I always say as long as everyone has fun. But, you know, I grew up in Ontario, and all my relatives are texting me last night, and they're like, sweep. And I'm like, shut up.
Yeah,
this is what happens every time.
We don't want to hear it. Do not use that word. Nick, I think you had your headphones in while I was talking to Jagmeet Singh. What'd you make of the interview? What do you make of their party's position right now? What's occurring to you?
Well, a bunch of stuff jumped out at me, but one was when he said Ottawa works best. He told you Ottawa works best when one party doesn't have all the power. And this encapsulates perfectly, I think, the NDP's position in this campaign, and their pivot, if you want to call it that, to no longer running to win, at least win the whole thing, but they want to grind out wins in ridings where they think New Democrats can go to Ottawa and make the difference that he talked about, and get some policy wins. The way he said that very much in stark contrast to, well, first of all, the two rivals in Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney, but also very different from Tom Mulcair's campaign in 2015, Jack Layton's in 2011, and even some of Jagmeet's early elections in 2019, 2021.
So we're now in a position with like 5 days to go. What are the storylines that you're following across the country right now? Who are you watching most closely?
Well, I'm watching Mark Carney. I'm watching Pierre Poilievre. I'm watching Jagmeet Singh. It's, in particular, where they're going, who they're trying to reach right now. I think Jagmeet Singh being in Edmonton. I mean, you talked about this off the top of the show. They see wins there. Heather McPherson, I walked around some doors with her when I was in the province and in town a couple weeks ago, and they're treating that as a stronghold like any other election. There aren't too many of those in Canada.
No.
And they see opportunity like you talk about a lot in Edmonton Centre. And so that speaks to where Jagmeet sees the opportunities. Mark Carney is in the Lower Mainland today, in Vancouver. He sees opportunity in ridings that looked hopeless for the Liberals 4 months ago. And Pierre Poilievre started the day in Hamilton. He's ending the day in Nova Scotia. Hamilton and Central Nova are two ridings that also looked very conservative 4 months ago. He's still hoping, I guess, to grind out some victories, but he's not in safe conservative territory. He's in Liberal ridings, hoping he can draw crowds and swing some votes.
Yeah, this was, we had Thomas Lukazik on the show yesterday, Alberta's former deputy premier. Yeah. He's filed a Law Society complaint against UCP's Justice Minister. Anyway, this unrelated to that. That's just me shamelessly plugging our show for people that want to check out our past episodes. But this tweet yesterday, he sent it out. He says, NDP Edmonton Centre supporters. So he's talking about Tricia Estabrooks. He's talking about who Jagmeet was just talking about. Supporters will have to make a difficult choice. He says, just like I lent my vote to the NDP in the last provincial election, NDP supporters in Edmonton Centre should lend their vote to Liberal Eleanor Olszewski to present a Conservative win. He says Edmonton needs a voice in government. That's sort of a thing. That's a kick in the teeth for progressives campaigning for Tricia Estabrooks, who I know personally, who is the type of person, I think, I'm not endorsing her, but I'm just saying she's the type of person that would proudly serve her constituents. That's got to be frustrating as a progressive.
Yeah, this is maybe the most important question of the last week. There are probably 20 most important questions, but let's say one of them is what happens to the NDP vote across the country and in key regions and in key ridings. Because the worse the NDP does, the worse the Conservatives do, because the Liberals will just scoop up so many of those progressive votes. The NDP hasn't moved a lot. They dropped quite low. They've come up a little bit from the basement of their campaign, but still they're just bleeding votes to Mark Carney's Liberals, and it comes at the cost of someone like maybe Tricia Estabrooks pulling out a win, because those nationwide trends do get reflected locally. You hear it when you walk around all over the place.
You keeping an eye on Pierre Poilievre today? Are you? He's going to be in Trenton. What's shaking?
Yeah, he's in Stony Creek, Ontario, where he had a rally that actually the first time we spoke this campaign was the day after that rally. Where I was in the room, and there were a few thousand people, really loud people on the east end of Hamilton. He really, really, really wants those people to vote for him. And then, yeah, he's going to Trenton, Nova Scotia. I thought Trenton, Ontario. I read the province wrong at first. It's Nova Scotia.
I'm glad you didn't drive all night.
Yeah. But Trenton, Nova Scotia is even more interesting because that is Sean Fraser's riding, longtime cabinet minister who left cabinet and was leaving politics until Mark Carney roped him back in, and now he's making another run and is favored to win in Central Nova. Again, a riding that looked like a guy like Fraser would just get kicked out at the depths of Justin Trudeau's unpopularity. So the fact that Poilievre's going there says a lot about where he thinks, or at least hopes, with 5 days left, he still has a chance to maybe surprise some people.
Yeah, Fraser, correct. I could wind up with egg on my face. He was housing and immigration, wasn't he, at different points? Like, Fraser's been in charge of like two of probably the three or four most contentious or most important files anyway to Canadians, are the top of Canadians' minds right now anyway. And if you assess that the Liberals didn't do the most wonderful job, Fraser's a likable and very competent politician. He's been on this show. I know a lot of people wondered if he'd seek the leadership. I mean, that's how he was regarded. But yeah, interesting to see how that riding will land. I guess specific ridings can have ballot box questions too, right? That one is probably, does he deserve another shot at it?
Yeah, and I would not be surprised at all if Pierre Poilievre on stage tonight calls him, as he has called him before, the worst immigration minister in Canadian history.
Right.
I mean, he goes hard at Sean Fraser. He hates the guy, and he hates his housing track record too. He calls the $4 billion housing accelerator fund that the Liberals and that Sean Fraser hoped would actually spur housing supply in this country. He just calls it a waste of taxpayer money. Dismisses it entirely. So. I imagine he'll go directly at Fraser when he's on stage tonight for sure.
Okay, I have to ask you about the Brantford Boomer. This is a wild story. So I don't know. I'm going to look to you for your insights. But basically, for folks that aren't familiar with this, there's a Liberal rally in Ontario, right? And we'll show the tweet from Karima Sad, who's been on this show before. She's a lawyer. She's a pundit. She's a provocateur. She's a cartoonist. We had her on talking about her Doug Ford cartoons. But she's outside. They got their cameras rolling, and this Carney supporter just gives her the double bird, the double banger, both middle fingers. She posts it, says elbows and or fingers up. And then all of a sudden, the photo starts going viral and everybody starts talking about it. And then this guy, Jacob Bradshaw, on TikTok releases a video. Now, Johnny and I, we wanted to play the video, but we can't, Nick. Just to be a nerd, I'll explain it to the audience. He has Radiohead as his music bed. And
that flag.
I know. YouTube will flag us if we play it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to narrate his video as best I can in the spirit of his. So here's Jacob Bradshaw as we show it. He says, this photo is a work of art. This photo will define this Canadian election. He goes on to say, this older gentleman giving the double middle finger at Mark Carney rallies with a big smile on his face is a representation of an entire class of people that does not care that you won't be able to afford a home, that does not care that you won't be able to have and raise kids in this country, that does not care about the fact that their country and culture is being completely destroyed and decimated from underneath them. This is the face of people who laugh and smile at the fact that you're complaining about the state of this country. They don't care. They love it. They know what they're doing. They know they're ruining things, and they love it because they're fine. They don't have to worry about it. And it's not all old people, so don't blame all the boomers. Don't say it's everybody, because it's a select group of people. But these types of people are the ones that want to screw over your future. So are you going to let that happen, or are we going to outvote people like this? Because we cannot have this continue on. That from Jacob Bradshaw on TikTok. It's gone viral, like hundreds of thousands of shares of that video. Now, it's not Mark Carney given the double bird, but how bad could this be?
I don't think it's going to be the defining image of the campaign, but I will give credit where it's due, that the image there speaks powerfully to a whole lot of young people who feel that way about boomers and about what they think boomer priorities are and how they think boomers conceive of this country. And there is a sense that boomers they're the ones who have time to worry about Donald Trump and the luxury, because they're not worried about day-to-day stuff, of being able to just sort of flip the bird at somebody who has a different opinion. I think what we don't see is the other side of the camera. We don't see the kinds of people who were trying to poke and prod this guy at this rally. So I think before the age of social media, this kind of stuff would happen all the time and no one would ever see it because no one could ever put it anywhere. So yeah, it won't define anything, but I think there's definitely a kernel, more than a kernel, thousands and thousands of kernels of anger that are just triggered by that image, because there's some truth there.
Yeah. Justin in our live chat right now, one of our valued members, says, this is a big deal, I guess, right? But all the fuck Carney and fuck Trudeau flags for years and bumper stickers and vulgar treatment of people, I guess now is a non-story. Checks out. That from Justin. I've not seen fuck Carney flags. Have you, Nick?
There's been a few, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think I think it's not a non-story, but it's more about the symbol here, as opposed to this campaign volunteer who lost his mind a little bit and is quoted now as regretting.
Well, yeah, no shit.
Those gestures. Yeah. He senses the egg on his face, and he knows that he's embarrassed both the local candidate, who's now facing a barrage of criticism, and Mark Carney to some degree, because every day that this is a conversation is a day that it's not what the Liberals want to be talking about. But
100%.
At the same time, this is not going to define the campaign. In a few weeks, I don't think we'll be looking back and saying like, oh man, that was the reason that X or Y happened on election day.
Sure, yeah, I think that these are paper cuts, but the Buttongate paper cut and then the double middle finger paper cut, it's kind of like maybe the campaign volunteers should just chill the fuck out for a little bit, you know?
Yeah, I think the worst outcome here is if we call it a non-story and don't try to mine and understand what's underneath that, right? Because the real story is a lot of young people, even if Mark Carney is reelected in a massive way, are still going to be unhappy. Their lives are still not going to be what they want them to be. They're still going to have less hope than they ever had about owning a home. All those things that Poilievre made bank on for years. That's all still real. It's true. You can't deny it. People feel how they feel. And their bank accounts are what they are.
No kidding. Numbers don't lie. Nick, you and your team have been absolutely killing it through this campaign. People can read your work at politico.com. Follow the Canada link to read all the coverage, including insights on that Canada-U.S. relationship. And, of course, I'm proud to be contributing to their Ottawa playbook every Thursday, The View from Alberta. You can read it all and subscribe at politico.com. Thanks for doing this, pal. We'll talk to you again in a week.
You bet.
All right. That's Nick Taylor-Vasey, Ottawa Bureau Chief for Politico. Jillian in a live chat powered by Park Power. Get exclusive deals on internet, electricity, and natural gas at parkpower.ca/realtalk. Says, or maybe it's 2 fingers at Trump. Maybe. It's all in how a picture is portrayed, right? That's the thing, I guess. Les, $6 into the super chat, $5. Thanks, Les. Says, yeah, but the fuck Carney flags are okay. Give me a break. Tracy saying the same thing. There seems to be consensus in the chat. Have you seen a fuck Carney flag yet? I have not seen one yet.
I don't think I've seen one yet. I'm aware that they're out there. I've seen some posts online, but yeah.
Is it like when your favorite NHL or your favorite player gets traded, and then you just cover the name bar with hockey tape, and then you fill in the new name, and kind of everyone's just putting duct tape over their fuck Trudeau flags and just filling in Carney, I guess.
Well, we're living in the age of like you can literally just make something on Photoshop and go down to a print shop, and 30 minutes later you've got a decal for your jacked up truck. Hey, nothing against jacked up trucks. I like some of them.
Yeah.
They're pretty special.
Yeah. Jay says, I was just in my brother's 1-ton diesel over the weekend. Those
they're monsters.
They're phenomenal. It's like being in a limousine.
Yeah.
Jay says, I always get a chuckle when the fuck Trudeau flags are flying behind a guy driving an $80,000 pickup. Life really sucks, apparently. Steph says, what about the Poilievre supporters at the Carney rally yelling at him? I heard you have a trans daughter, and I heard your wife is a man. That's what disgusts me about Poilievre supporters. Yeah, we talked about that in a past episode, Steph. I'll take your point and appreciate you bringing that up. In just a second, we're going to check in with the founder. This is the guy that got it all started in Staten Island, Amazon's first labor union, Chris Smalls. He's in Alberta for a high-profile keynote this weekend. Gil McGowan, president of the Alberta Federation of Labor, the one bringing him here. Both of them will join us around the Real Talk Roundtable in just a second. Before we get there, John, we want to let everybody know that registration now open for our 4th annual Real Talk Golf Classic at the Ranch Golf and Country Club. That's going to be Thursday, the 19th of June. 2 p.m. shotgun start, all in support of the Real Talk Julie Rohr Scholarship. We are proud to partner with the team at the Ranch Golf and Country Club. Number one, because they're, without a doubt, Alberta's best public course. Absolutely love that track. And they love to party, by the way. They're always rolling out the red carpet for us when we're at the ranch, making us feel welcome. And you know that the ranch also does more than 120 tournaments a year. Nobody does more than the ranch. What does that mean for you? Well, if you're organizing your companies, your organizations, your nonprofits golf classic, your golf tournament, the team at the ranch is going to get you all set up with everything you need, from merch, from menu choices, from hospitality-related ideas. They've got it all nailed down at theranchgolf.com. If you're investing in your personal space this spring, if getting organized and decluttered is your number one priority, you're going to want to start at CaliforniaClosets.ca. California Closets is a proudly Canadian-owned and operated company doing the absolute best work in custom closets and storage solutions for the entire home. I know that some of you right now are thinking, I don't know if California Closets is the best move for me right now. I've heard that you could just go to kind of like a big box store, Johnny, and you could just do your own thing. You know, you could kind of just get your own closet, bang it together, save a few bucks. Well, JJ, in our Real Talk live chat, I'm not sure if you saw this message the other day. Take it from JJ, who says, my husband and I decided to do the IKEA version of California Closets, the DIY cost-efficient version. We're divorced now, JJ says. Go with California Closets. Listen to JJ and visit californiaclosets.ca. And a shout out to our friends at North Road Investment Council, a steady hand and a studied voice to guide you through wealth and investing. You know, in Canada, it's typical for investment advice and financial planning to be delivered through a bank or a bank-owned brokerage firm. But the team at North Road wants to give successful savers and investors a chance to experience wealth management advice on a platform of true independence. Through the support of professionals with CFP and CFA designations, your financial plan will be delivered in connection to an hourly fee, not from commissions paid from investment products. You can learn more about this unique opportunity, a great way to try out the services, on their website. That's northroadic.com. Well, yeah, we're trying to decide if we introduce our next guest. Is he a labor hero? Is he a labor icon? I don't know. But without a doubt, Chris Smalls is an American labor organizer who founded the Amazon Labor Union, leading to the first ever successful unionization of an Amazon warehouse in the United States, in Staten Island. Fired by Amazon in 2020 for organizing a walkout over inadequate pandemic safety measures, Smalls co-founded the Congress of Essential Workers, advocating for improved working conditions and wages. He's, based on his grassroots activism, a prominent figure easily in the labor movement, earning recognition of one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people of 2022. Joining AFL President Gil McGowan in studio. What a pleasure to welcome Chris Smalls. Thanks for making time for us.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Time Magazine's 100 most influential people. That's a hell of a list to be on.
Yeah.
How old were you when you were on that list?
33.
You're a young guy for something like that, to be on a list like that.
Yeah.
Did you ever see something like that happening?
No. I mean, I take that back. As a kid, I inspired to be like a hip hop artist. You know, that was always a passion of mine. Or like an NBA player. Those were my two passions as a kid, a young kid. I always wanted to be, you know, somewhat of a, I guess you could say, a public figure, celebrity.
But not as a labor organizer.
No, not as a labor organizer. Never. If you would have told me 5 years ago that I'd be sitting here as a founder of a union, I'd have been like, what are you talking about?
So it just starts small? It was like, we talked about paper cuts hurting a political campaign.
Yeah.
Was it the same sort of a thing for you? Small wounds or perceived slights or whatever, working for one of the world's most prominent and biggest companies?
Yeah, absolutely. I worked at Amazon. I got hired at 25 years old, 2015, entry level. Worked my tail off for a year, got promoted up to an assistant manager. And I was an assistant manager for 4.5 years. And I opened up 3 warehouses for them in the tri-state area. New Jersey, Connecticut, and New York was my last building. And they didn't take care of us during COVID. But for me personally, I never got the opportunity to move up to upper management. You know, it was very systemic on how they decided who was going to move up. And when I realized that it was before COVID, that I didn't have a chance of becoming a real, actual salaried manager, which I aspired to be. And that was before the pandemic. And I realized that, you know, this company doesn't have workers at the bottom's best interest anymore. And that's when I decided to take further action.
You must have had to convince your colleagues, convince your coworkers that this was a risk worth taking, especially in areas with stronger anti-union sentiments. And I'm going to ask you the same question, Gil, about this, but I know that there's a lot of people that would fear intimidation, retaliation, job security. What was your message to your colleagues when you were really sticking your neck out there?
Yeah. I mean, well, during the time, obviously COVID-19 was the epidemic of the world, especially in New York City. And as Amazon workers, we were deemed essential workers. We didn't ask for that title. It was given to us by the government and by the CEO at the time, Jeff Bezos, who was the richest man in the world at the time, making $13 billion a day. And to deem us essential workers and not protect us by providing the PPE didn't make any sense. So originally, that was the catalyst to our advocacy was health and safety. I had workers that were coming to work sick, had workers that were testing positive, coming into the building, around thousands of workers, and myself. I wanted to protect myself and my family, so I thought I was speaking up on behalf of everybody. The company decided to make an example out of me by firing me and quarantining me out of thousands of workers at my building. And I just couldn't stand with that. So I led a walkout that went public. And the same day I was fired 2 hours later, which, obviously broke and violated my rights as a worker. And what made it worse was Jeff Bezos decided to sign off on a smear campaign. Ironically, he said to make me the face of the whole unionizing efforts against Amazon, which at that time I didn't have no intentions on doing. So I said that was a good idea, and that's exactly, a year later, fast forward, that's what we came back and did.
This is a high-profile story. It's out of Staten Island. It's organizing against Amazon. It's Jeff Bezos attacking the worker. But in less high-profile situations, Gil, as we say officially hello to the president of the Alberta Federation of Labor, Gil McGowan, is this story more common than people might think?
Well, it is more common, and you can see why we at the Alberta Federation of Labor have invited Chris to be the keynote speaker at our convention, which starts tomorrow. It's an inspiration, right? And what he did is exactly what workers need to do every day, everywhere, because when we're talking about affordability, we're talking about wages that aren't keeping up with inflation. Really, the only solution is for workers to come together and demand better. And the phrase that we talk about in the context of the affordability crisis is worker bargaining power, right? I mean, and we're in the middle of a federal election campaign right now. The solution to the affordability crisis is not going to be given to us by the Liberal Party. It's certainly not going to be given to us by the Conservative Party. It's not going to be given to us by any politicians. The solution is for workers to come together, join unions, bargain good collective agreements so that we can get wage increases that allow us to live a decent standard of living. That's exactly what Chris did with his fellow workers in that Amazon warehouse in Staten Island, and it's what workers have to do all across the country, all across the continent, and right here in Edmonton.
Lauren is here in our live chat, powered by Park Power. He says, Chris isn't an ass kisser, so promotions are limited. We got Dubious, by the way, who I guess Dubious has a radio show, I think. He says, ask Chris if he makes music. I'll break my rule and play an American on my show. There you go. You'd be the first American to cry. Are you making music right now?
No, I mean, honestly, I haven't touched the microphone in, as far as new music, in over a while, probably over a decade, but from time to time, people ask me to perform, and I might just play some of my old music for them.
That was a pretty remarkable shot of this rally. You obviously had people. You commanded the room last night. It was you, Jagmeet Singh, at a rally for. Was this the Tricia Estabrooks rally that you were at? Yeah. For Edmonton Centre. What do you say to a Canadian audience? What parallels do you see? How much do you know, or how much have you been briefed on Alberta, where you are right now?
Well, on Alberta, not too much, but I can say
it's kind of Texas North, right? That's to say it in 2 words.
That's exactly how he described it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it gives me the country vibes, suburb vibes. So it's actually cool out here. But Canada and as a whole, I've been here quite a few times since we were successful with our union. They've been inviting me back and forth over the last 2 or 3 years. That's how I met Jagmeet 3 years ago in Montreal, I believe, and also in Toronto. So it's been quite fascinating to learn the politics of Canada and how that correlates to the United States. And of course, people have been keeping me in the loop with the new elections that's going on right now and the debates and everything. So yeah, I think the struggles are all connected. The working class in America is struggling, obviously, with our two-party system that we're dealing with now with the Trump administration. That's definitely going to play a part of the working class here in Canada. How are we going to fight back against, the inhumane things that they're trying to do and roll back on?
I've always been, I want to kind of ask both of you this, just encourage you to both take this on, but I've always been fascinated by the, I guess you call them like anti-union sentiments, by some of the hate that unions or union workers experience, in particular if they're out picketing or those types of things. Gil, you and I have talked about this before. The common refrain, and we'll probably get emails today to talk@ryanjespersen.com, people saying, this isn't the industrial revolution anymore. People are being paid overtime, people are getting sick leave, people have benefits. Unions have kind of played out their relevance. Unions have played out their importance. On the flip side, you look at how many Albertans or how many Canadians are union members, and the numbers are significant. How do you reconcile that, Gil? What do you say to the critics that say maybe unions are now, the big bloated unions with the fat cat bosses, they've lost their perspective on their purpose?
Well, I'd say that unions are more important now than ever, and all of those safeguards which you referred to, and protections in legislation like the minimum wage, health and safety protections, those weren't just handed to us on a silver platter. They were a result of decades of political fights led by workers through unions to develop a legislative framework to protect working people. And I just want to say to those people who point to them, I want to ask the question, how long do you think those things are going to last without a strong labor movement to protect them? Right? So it's a question of constant vigilance. Working people are going to get screwed if they don't pull together, stand together, push back, and the best vehicle for them to do that are unions. Right, and honestly, working people are pissed off, right? And I hope that's language that I can use.
You can
on
say
your
whatever
show.
you want, buddy.
So working people in Canada, the United States, around the world, they're pissed off. Their wages aren't keeping up with inflation. The cost of living is going up. They're losing job protection. If there was a time for unions, it's right now. And, I look at conservatives like Pierre Poilievre in the federal election campaign making a play for union workers. But if he's not talking about things that will actually give workers more power in their workplaces, more bargaining power on the political stage, then he's not really standing up for workers. So what we need are political allies that will create legal frameworks that actually strengthen our bargaining power so that we can get better wages, we can get better benefits, we can get better job security, and that give us real power on the political stage and the economic stage. If they're not talking about that, then they're not really offering support for workers.
Were you surprised at all or taken back when you got this ball rolling, when you took that position of leadership as an organizer? What were the pros and cons that you experienced firsthand?
Well, obviously, being a black man in America leading something so powerful as taking on a $2 trillion company, it's going to come with a lot of scrutiny and a lot of hatred and bigotry and everything. I was cut from a single parent home. My mom raised me. My dad's been incarcerated my whole life. So I kind of grew up kind of fast, being the oldest child and having a lot of responsibilities as a young kid. So this was just no different. Amazon didn't realize how valuable I was to their company. Jeff Bezos obviously doesn't know that I opened up 3 warehouses for him. I trained thousands of Amazon workers, hundreds of their upper management. I was very popular as a supervisor there for them. Obviously, I took my job very seriously, and I was a modeled employee. So when they fired me, they chose somebody who was already a natural-born leader. And I just took the skill sets that I had of being an artist, being a people's person, being a person of color, adding culture, adding things that they can't add up, metrics and numbers and profits that they can't calculate, and that's just love and solidarity. When you care about people, when you show up every day, when you earn trust and build relationships, that's what ultimately got us our union, is that the people trusted the fact that we are actual Amazon workers that care and give a damn about everyday working class people.
Has Amazon recognized the union contract at JFK 8?
No. Amazon hasn't recognized us since we won. Yeah.
So what's the status of how are those workers, or how are you ensuring that those workers' voices are heard?
Yeah, it's really the process is really terrible in America. Honestly, the National Labor Relations Board, which should have given us a bargaining order under the Biden administration, didn't happen. So even though we beat Amazon, rightfully so, we were certified as a federal entity, but we still haven't been given a bargaining order to negotiate a contract because the process goes through all of these appeals, and the appeals process is trying to go up to the Supreme Court, which is the legal process. For me, keeping workers engaged is by education and providing services. That's what unions do. And some of the services that we provide doesn't cost much. The little bit of donations that we do get, we give back to the organizing efforts. But I was able to draft a bill last year and get it passed by the Governor Hochul last year. It's called the Warehouse Protection Act. And this Warehouse Protection Act actually abolished the rate and productivity in my building. And not just Amazon warehouses, but all New York warehouses fall under this bill. And also, alongside of that bill, there's a abolishment of transparency when it comes to retaliation. Management can't just retaliate against a worker without showing a process or having transparency, something they didn't have at Amazon before. And ultimately, I tell people this, people that say that unions don't matter. If I had a union when they fired me, I wouldn't be here. And the day they fired me as the whistleblower for COVID-19, I cost the company $4 billion. The next day, they had to hand deliver PPE to our building and hand deliver PPE to not just my building, but every building in the Amazon network, which covers about 2.5 million workers worldwide. So prior to me being fired, we didn't have any protections. But because a worker like myself decided to speak out, that cost the company money, which they had, and it also holds the company accountable. And that's what we have to do as working class people. We have to hold not just corporations and billionaires accountable, but we also have to hold our elected officials accountable.
What's the most meaningful thing that anybody has ever come up and said to you? Do you think of one particular instance?
As a worker or as
based on your efforts, based on your organizing and your involvement? Like, I can think over the course of my career a couple times where somebody came up to me and said something to me and it just blew me back against the wall in a good way.
In a good way? Yeah, I mean, I met a lot of people over the last few years, even been invited to the White House. But I didn't get my best advice from the White House, I can tell you that.
Tell us about that.
About Joe Biden, it's not much to talk about. But I'll tell you, after I tell you that some of the best advice I've got, rest in peace, Jane McAlevey. She was one of the most prominent labor leaders of our time. And she passed away, unfortunately, from cancer. But I've been able to spend some intimate moments with her. And she told me some of the most powerful things. And I think I even said it last night at the event, that there's leaders and there's activists. And it's a leader's job is to activate the activists. And, everybody has a role to play. And I take that very extremely and extreme, and I definitely take it serious, and I try to lead by example. And I know, when people ask me like, what motivates you to do this work, I ask myself this: if I don't get up and do the work, who else is going to do it? And that's just the standards that I live by. As far as the White House, unfortunately, Joe Biden, who claimed to be the most pro-union president in history, American history, that wasn't the case. Even that day when I met him and I met Kamala, I felt empty when I left. I felt like they were just, handing me a pamphlet, and it was false promises and hopes. And I was right. I didn't hear from them after that. And the only time I was re-invited back to the White House was to come do a photo op on June 19th. And I declined that because I felt that they were just using us to say that they stand with workers' struggle, and I just wasn't for that anymore. I wanted to have something in writing, like drafting some federal laws to protect workers. The laws in America haven't been touched since the 1930s, since after the Great Depression, And now we're looking at the same thing when we talk about how history repeats itself with the pandemic in 2020. It's an opportunity for elected officials to use not just their mouths, but put some pen and paper and put some bills on the table that was going to protect us, and that didn't happen.
If you're just joining us on the Real Talk live stream presented by California Closets, we're talking to Chris Smalls, organizer of the first Amazon labor union in Staten Island, the president of the Alberta Federation of Labor, Gil McGowan, also in the house with us, a 4-year deal last month with Alberta's nurses union, representing more than 30,000 nurses in the province, about a 20% pay raise. I know a lot of people kind of look to that, almost a little bit surprised maybe, that there wasn't sort of a major exchange of blows in the public, and then the health minister and the nurses union leadership weren't dragging each other out. And it happened with a pay raise that I think everybody looked at. It makes Alberta's nurses the highest paid in the province. And quite frankly, some people went, like, maybe they didn't see that coming. What do you read into that? What does that say to you? What does that suggest to you about the climate or the temperature of the relationship or negotiations between big unions and the UCP government?
Well, I would put the nurses' settlement in the context of the fight that Chris has been talking about, because when it comes to working people, the only power that we really have is the power of collective action. Individually, we're easy to pick off, but together we have power. And the nurses demonstrated that power over the course of about 6 months. First, there was a mediator settlement that was imposed on them. They got a chance to vote on it. They voted it down, and they basically said it wasn't good enough. And they went back to the bargaining table with the threat of a province-wide nurses' strike hanging over the whole situation. And because they were united, they overwhelmingly rejected that mediator settlement, and they made it really clear to the provincial government and everyone else who wanted to pay attention that they were serious and that they were willing to strike. And the result was that because of their solidarity, they got a much better agreement. That's what unions are about. Unions are not about striking. They're about getting the best possible deal for the members that they represent. The strike is the last resort. We much prefer getting a good deal, but the nurses made it clear that they were tight, that they were united. And that's what got them that 20% increase. And I'll just point out, it's not 20% at once. It's 20% over 4 years. So it's 5% a year. And in the current context of rising cost of living, it's eminently reasonable. Every worker in this province should expect, and they deserve, the same kind of increases that the nurses won. But the nurses won it because of their collective strength.
Yeah. I don't want to get too into the weeds on this, and I don't want to lose Chris's interest in the interview, but I got to go zero in even more local when looking at bargaining between big unions in the city of Edmonton at the municipal level.
Yeah.
And it's been interesting. I get to talk to people smarter than me every single day, and explaining to me how a municipal government, a mayor that's trying to keep property taxes low, and at the same time collectively bargain with big unions, is in a really tough spot, especially considering compelling and valid arguments around things like inflation and an increase in the cost of living. How do you reconcile it all? Because a government at any level that's negotiating with unions and in good faith
Right.
and reaching a deal like this with the nurses also has to answer to the electorate at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I'll say a couple of things, especially in the context of negotiations at the city level. First, the cities are being jammed, not just Edmonton, but Calgary and others, because we have a conservative political government that is cutting taxes for wealthy people, cutting taxes for profitable corporations, and then they're downloading services on the municipalities. And so municipalities have to provide these services with fewer resources. And so now they're going to the bargaining table and they're behind because they've been put behind by the provincial government. So that puts them in a tight spot. But at the same time, if wages don't keep up with inflation, we're talking about a decline in the standard of living. And as the president of the biggest worker organization in this province, we're sending the message that that's just not on. I mean, people have to understand that if wages don't keep up with inflation, our standard of living declines. And what we're saying is that workers don't have to take that lying down. And so that's why we come together. we push back and we demand better. We're not demanding anything unreasonable. I think most people would understand there's been a rising cost of living. We want to maintain our standard of living. And it's not just about individuals. If workers don't have money in their pocket, the economy doesn't go. So as workers fall behind, the whole economy falls behind. So it's in everyone's best interest to make sure that everyone gets a fair deal in their workplace. But the final thing I'll say is, and this is a big concern, right? Like whether it's here in Edmonton, Alberta, across the world, what we're seeing is employers, especially big billionaires like Jeff Bezos and Amazon, trying to create a new underclass of workers, right? So we've got the capitalists at the top, we've got their high-paid managers, then we have a band of people who've been able to get better deals for themselves because they've come together in unions, bargain better collective agreements, conditions of work. Then we have workers who are protected only by minimum employment standards. And that was the hierarchy before, but now we've got companies like Amazon trying to create yet another underclass of people with even fewer rights. They call them independent contractors, gig workers. And if we allow that to happen, the whole structure gets pulled down except for those capitalists at the top. And as working people, the tool we have is collective action. And so it's interesting that Chris mentioned Jane McAlevey, who's sort of an icon of union organizing. She actually was a keynote speaker at one of our recent conventions before she died tragically of cancer. Now we have Chris. This is the inspiration that we're trying to provide to our workers in this province to stand up, push back, and demand better.
In our Real Talk live chat powered by Park Power, interesting comments here. Tracy Campbell chimes in, says, when we're talking about unions, those of us who have had to witness the steady decline of public sector workplaces are hoping that collective action will force change. Tracy says many workplaces have become toxic. It's not always really about increases. It's not like everything's sorted itself out at Amazon either. Obviously, the revenue is off the charts. Mr. Bezos' wealth off the charts, but still heavy criticism around the company's labor practices. You've seen it from the inside. What's the biggest work to be done in your estimation?
Well, it's once again mass education on what a union is. There's a lot of, as you mentioned, just false narratives, a lot of bad stigmas about unions. Obviously, the opposition is always going to put out false narratives. And billionaires and corporations are going to try to pour money into anti-union campaigns and propaganda. So just understanding that the real history of labor is not being taught to us in classrooms. As I mentioned before, if you'd have told me that I'd have been sitting here as a union founder 5 years ago when I was on my way to like the nearest hip hop concert, I would have looked at you like you were crazy. But to have the opportunity to walk into classrooms now on career day and walk into elementary schools and middle schools, and I've been to all the Ivy Leagues in America that you can think of and speak to these younger adults and younger generation and kids that are 10 and 12 years old. Me having 12-year-old twins myself, being a father, and being able to talk to actually have kids tell me that Jeff Bezos is a bad man, it's very eye-opening and also motivating. And that's what we need. We need education about history of labor, not just about the history, but what's going on in current times. And on career day, I encourage teachers that are a part of unions to don't just bring in your local fire department and police officers anymore. Bring in labor leaders, bring in leaders of the community that are actually doing real grassroots organizing so that people can not just inspire to be NBA players and rappers anymore, but also inspire to be labor leaders and movement leaders and community leaders, because that's what we need right now. We need people in our own community to stand up and fight back, because there is no cavalry coming for us. No matter who you elect, no matter what your political ideology is, we have to fight for ourselves as our own community, because billionaires like Jeff Bezos and others, they're going to set up shop and reap the benefits. And the only power that we do have is to withhold our labor.
Do your 12-year-old twins realize who their dad is? Like what dad did?
I think it's starting to get there. Their teachers are big fans. Their teachers are in the union, and usually when I go see them on their holiday plays at their school, like I'm I'm usually pulled aside to take pictures with their classmates and stuff. But even prior to that, they thought I was like this huge rapper because I had a couple of YouTube videos. And
Sure.
so when I used to pick them up from the Boys and Girls Club, they were like, you know, all these kids would be looking at me, and I'm like, I work at Amazon. I have no money. So yeah, I think trying to put two and two together is kind of funny and ironic at the same time. And yeah, you know, it's a blessing to see that, you know, that they're looking up to their dad.
It's been cool hanging with you today, and our audience. I don't know if you've been watching the live chat here on this screen, but it's banging today. And so just a lot of comments from people that have appreciated your advocacy, that have insights into what's happening here right now. Tracy D in the chat just basically says teachers haven't had a cost of living increase for more than 10 years right now. I think that stuff's always shocking to hear for people that might not realize it. Teachers aren't getting paid $175,000 a year, and so absorbing inflation year to year, obviously pretty significant. Chris is in town on Friday. Will be speaking at the 54th annual AFL Constitutional Convention. You can learn more at afl.org, but it all kicks off tomorrow. That'll be April 24th on the Thursday. What sort of a vibe are you expecting there, Gil? Is this optimism? Is it like solidarity and seriousness? Like, what sort of a vibe can people expect?
Well, you know, over the last couple of years, we've built this new coalition of unions called the Common Front, bringing AFL-affiliated unions together with non-affiliates, and we're feeling our strength. And a bunch of the unions that are involved in that Common Front, including the nurses, are concluding historic agreements. So even though there's a lot to be worried about in this world, especially with authoritarianism lapping up on our borders thanks to Donald Trump, but there's optimism that by pulling together, we're finding our strength. The nurses have won a good collective agreement. We had our education workers on the picket line. We had 9 locals on strike at the same time, historic, right? So there's this ferment in our labor movement right now, and Chris is going to be dropping down right in the middle of that to help keep the fires burning. So we're really excited, not just by his visit and looking forward to his speech on Friday to our delegates, but we're also having a big rally at the legislature, calling the Resistance Rally, Saturday at 2:30. So and everyone is welcome to join us, not just folks who are in the labor movement, but anyone who's concerned about the direction our province is taking. We invite them to come down, hear Chris speak at that rally, and share the inspiration.
Tony in our chat says, great panel, keep up the great work, Gil and Chris. We always need to fight for workers' rights. Can I ask a cynical question? When it comes to rallies and getting people together, obviously it fires people up. Like it brings people together. It sort of like waters their plants. It waters the garden. It waters the grassroots. It fills people's cups, I guess. But does it actually like resonate? You know, like I remember this. You remember back in the Kenny conservative years in Alberta, and do you remember that there were like rallies around, you know, environmental protection and those sorts of things. And do you remember at the time Kenny's foot soldier Matt Wolf smacking up the "I love Canadian oil and gas" signs in the window and sneering at the people? And there was this phenomenal long lens photo that a journalist grabbed of him kind of laughing at everybody down there. When you organize a big rally, what do you hope to? What's the number one thing you hope to accomplish? Are you speaking to the public? Are you pressuring government? What is it?
Rallies are important, but they're not enough.
Right.
Rallies are important in the sense that they remind our core that they're not alone. And I would actually say a lot of our activists who are fighting for a better workplace, better Alberta, they're more representative of the mainstream in Alberta than some of these extreme conservatives that we hear all the time. The real Albertan is actually a working class person who wants a decent life for themselves and their family. That's what we're about, right? So the rallies are important for reminding us that we're not alone. But going back to the point that both Chris and I have been talking about, successful organizing is not just about mobilizing your existing supporters. It's always about expanding the base, right? So rallies are good for mobilizing our core, but we have to do more. We have to constantly be expanding the circle. And there's actually a huge opportunity for the labor movement to do that right now, because so many working class people are pissed off about their wages, about affordability, not being able to have their kids afford a home. The right wing, people like Poilievre, are taking advantage of that, turning that anger to their political purpose. But there's a huge opportunity for us to turn that anger into optimism about joining a union, maybe mobilizing behind a progressive political agenda like a $20 an hour minimum wage, making it easier to join unions, a wealth tax, an excess profit tax on companies that are price gouging us at the pumps and in grocery stores. There's an opportunity for progressives, including the labor movement, to take this anger and turn it into something much more positive. And that's exactly what Chris and I are going to be talking about at our convention at the rally. And so we're hoping that Chris will be a spark to take us up to the next level.
No pressure.
Yeah.
Here's that photo, by the way. I'll credit David Kleiman-Haga at albertapolitics.ca. There's that shot of Matt Wolf looking out the window at the Alberta legislature with "I love Canadian oil and gas. Take action," reads the sign at canadaaction.ca. Look at me. I'm doing a free plug for these guys inadvertently. In closing, your thoughts on I like that idea, what Gil says. Rallies are important, but they're not enough.
Yeah.
When you touch down in a jurisdiction like this, like I don't know your schedule, but maybe you're here in Alberta and then maybe you're in Delaware next week and then maybe you're in California. I don't know. You're all over the place.
Yeah.
What's the one thing that you hope to accomplish regardless of where you're at?
Planting seeds. I'm a vessel. I've learned that and embraced it a long time ago. And yeah, rallies are not the resolution to our issues, but they are our ways of sort of walking and chewing bubblegum at the same time. You know, we have to educate and agitate. And, rallies are tools. And when you're going up against billionaires who have endless amount of money, more money than 10,000 lifetimes, more money to pour into propaganda, buy up the news outlets and buy up media, put out false narratives, we can't match that. We can never match the billionaires and the money and resources that they have, even the power that they have. But when we come together as working class people, when we are at these rallies, we're fighting back. I always say this as well. We have to create our own propaganda, even on the left, and rallies are a way of doing that. And alongside with social media, traditionally unions, 5-10 years ago, unions weren't on TikTok, but now unions have to adapt to the new school style of organizing, and the younger generation and the students, these movements are teaching us that the old school methods have to be just tweaked a little bit, and rallies are a way of doing it, always a great way of bringing people out and bringing people together. But that will never be our resolution. We just have to, once again, hold elected officials accountable and also hold unions accountable. There's nothing wrong with holding unions accountable as well.
I'm showing your Instagram post here promoting or enlightening people about the Labor Party. Can you see a day where America moves beyond a two-party system in meaningful fashion?
Absolutely. Last election cycle, there was plenty of third-party options. Unfortunately, without labor endorsements, they're never going to get to where they need to be. So I hope by me revamping the Labor Party, the U.S. Labor Party, because believe it or not, we had one in the 1960s and 70s. It dissolved before I was born, but me being a labor leader now, being one of the most prominent people to speak about labor, I'm hoping that I can put people in a position, especially labor unions, in a position to understand that we need to escape the two-party system. They haven't been doing right by the working class for decades in our country. These last elections proven that there's a huge disconnect. And other countries like Canada, they have multi-party governments, and obviously the policies that I'm incorporating are policies that we love to see in America, some that you guys already have here, like free healthcare, universal healthcare. I'm hoping that this will be an opportunity for labor unions to get on board and support this initiative. I just launched it a few months ago, so it's softly being launched, but over time, over the next 2 or 3 years, I'm hoping that it'll really take off and hopefully maybe be on the ballot by 28.
We're going to make you late for your next appointment. We got to let you both roll, but I want to thank you both for being here. A real pleasure to meet you in person. Chris Smalls out of Staten Island. You can follow Chris on Instagram. We'll punch the link into the. You're on TikTok too, yeah?
Well, my union is Amazon Labor Union.
Yeah. We'll punch those links into the show notes on the podcast and on YouTube. And, of course, Gil McGowan, always been available to this show, president of the Alberta Federation of Labor. You can learn more about their 54th AFL Constitutional Convention. Kicks off April 24th through the 27th at AFL.ca. Thanks to both of you.
Thanks, Ryan.
You bet. This conversation made possible by Real Talk partners like our friends at UCAN Youth Services, and this is a partnership that we're more than proud of. This is one that we take personally. We talk about creating opportunities. I mean, if you're not inspired by the conversation we just had, that's exactly what this organization is doing. You can learn more at ucan.ca. By checking out their website, check out their programs, including this relentless outreach program. This is the one we're telling you about. UCAN youth workers checking in on a regular basis with 12 to 17-year-olds in the Metro Edmonton region that are interacting with police, not in a good way, right? These are the top 50 at-risk young people, but don't tell that to the team at UCAN. They see nothing but potential here. They stop at nothing to reach out to these youth and empower them in making positive, healthy, and life-changing decisions, building long-term relationships with young people as they move through this ready, willing, and able model. The end goal, that they'll eventually live independently and out of harm's way. This is just one of the many programs offered by UCAN Youth Services, helping young folks out of harm's way and onto a path of economic independence. On their website, ucan.ca, you can make a donation or consider reaching out to them. If you're an employer hiring employees in entry-level positions, UCAN's got partnerships with some big organizations, and it's paying off in a big way for the employers and for these young people who sometimes just need opportunity put in front of them for the very first time. Again, that's UCAN Youth Services at ucan.ca. We also want to shout out Complete Care Restoration, the team that built this studio. The majority of the work that they do is getting people back on their feet. Homes and businesses impacted by natural disaster or other interruptions. Could be a sewer backup, smoke damage from a fire down the street, whatever it is. They won't just restore your property. They'll rebuild your peace of mind. Ready to respond 24/7. They'll work directly with your insurance company so you don't have to. Heaven forbid, if disaster strikes, check them out online at completecarerestoration.ca. Idris in the chat says, outstanding guest today. Politico, the Alberta Federation of Labor, Jagmeet Singh, party leader, Chris Smalls, he says, well done. One for the books. I want to give a shout out to the show's technical director, John Hicks, who has been doing incredible work behind the scenes to keep this all rolling. We heard a lot today. Mm-hmm. You don't get the sense that Jagmeet is considering his party to be down and out right now. What's he going to say? He didn't spend too much time getting into or analyzing the polls because I think it probably feels like a bit of a kick in the teeth. Yeah. But I heard Althea Raj say something I thought was really great on a panel with Rosie Barton a few days ago. She said one of the fascinating developments through this federal election campaign is that the polling is impacting voter sentiment.
Sure, yeah.
In other words, people take a look at the polls and they go, oh, the NDP's polling at 9%, so the NDP's cooked. When in all reality, they're jumping ship. They believe that they got to jump, and then here's Jagmeet trying to turn that sentiment around, including in, I'm not sure if I've ever mentioned, John, but I live in Edmonton Center, where the NDP is fighting.
I am Edmonton Gateway riding.
Yes. Yeah. Very interesting stuff.
So we're in different locations, but yeah, like everyone that comes in here, Jagmeet's he's a captivating guy. When he walks into a room, it just like when Trudeau walked in here. Have your opinions about leaders, but they're, you feel enamored by them sometimes. And, the thing about Singh is what he's saying, almost everything Singh says I agree with. Almost all of it. I mean, Everyone wants these things. Everyone wants their teeth to be affordable. Everyone wants health care. Everyone wants to be able to afford a home. It's just a shame that he's a leader of the NDP, or rather that the NDP have so few seats, But, either way, there's not much that he says. And you can have your opinions on, aligning with the Liberals and allowing Trudeau to do what he did for so long. Obviously, I don't think there's anyone out there in Canada, even Liberals near the end, who were not tired of Justin Trudeau and said, hey, we need a change. Yeah. Things aren't happening. The ball needs to get rolling again. But in general, I mean, there's not much he says that I don't agree with. All these things I advocate for, and I was watching some podcasts the other day and they showed a clip of RFK in the States. and Bernie Sanders. You know, Bernie Sanders and AOC are on like this rally, this campaign tour. I don't know what's going on. Is AOC running for president next?
Well,
I don't know what.
Everybody's gearing up for midterms.
I mean,
already.
is that what
the fight never stops? The campaigning never stops.
Are they the 1-2 punch next for the Democrats? I hope not, because that's going to fail horribly. But anyways, so they're on this rally and they're speaking at something to RFK and you know, they're asking about healthcare and Bernie says, you know, is healthcare a human right? And RFK, of course, stumbles, he can't get it out. And you know, his reply was basically, you know, he brought up like people who are obese and people who smoke and the weight they put on the system, and is it fair that we pay them out? And the whole time I'm thinking, I'm like, these are the outliers. Okay, maybe not in America. A lot of people are overweight, and I'm from America. Hello, family members. But you know what I mean? Like it just. I want leaders like Singh. I love his fire. I love that he talks positive. I love that he doesn't go to the opposite side of the fence to try and defend like budgets and things like that. He's for people first. And people are like, did you vote NDP? I'm not advocating for NDP or Jagmeet Singh right now. I'm just saying that when he sits and talks, most of the things he says, I agree with, and I think are things everybody in every household wants. They want fair, affordable education, healthcare for their kids. They want to be able to afford a home. So it's just a shame that like this whole these debates, especially, and I know Trump is overshadowing all this, but this whole political climate right now is just us. We're in the shadow of the United States right now. It's absolutely horrible. I wish, and maybe, and the political pundits are saying this right now, maybe this is Trump is a good thing right now, because we're looking at Canada and being like, man, we needed to change a lot of things for ourselves. And it's just a shame that all these debates, this whole campaign is being overshadowed by the big orange gorilla, if you know what I mean.
Well, that's what the Liberals want. That's what the Liberals want, and it's the last thing the Conservatives want.
We should be talking about regular things that everyone needs, especially nowadays when things are so unaffordable.
Yeah, it just goes
and
to
so
show
unobtainable.
Like we're in the. I'm of two thoughts. Like we're such proud Canadians, and we're proud of our country, and the true north, strong and free, and like this is the way that we feel for sure. It's hardwired within us. And this Elbows Up campaign, I think, has resonated with people for that reason. But we also acknowledge that this is like, what's that kid's parable, like the elephant and the mouse or whatever it is. Like, I mean, we are in the, you know, we're in the shadow of the United States, and when the United States moves on something, the ripple effect is significant. So I mean, both can be true at the same time. Emily says we can only hope that AOC would be the next Democratic nominee for president, or Jasmine Crockett, referencing the representative out of, I think, Texas 30th District. Tracy says AOC would be amazing. I'm not going to compare.
Don't get me wrong.
I'm not necessarily comparing the people, but I remember remember when Nikki Ashton was seeking the leadership of the NDs, and people were kind of like, I don't know. I think she's well-spoken, articulate, prominent, talented, but I think people saw her as like, I don't know, you there's this balance, right? And maybe it's the same with, I have limited experience with unions. I've been a union member through my career, on and off. But with union leadership is like, do you want the person that's like, is like the strongest, loudest voice on the priorities that are most important to you, at risk of coming across as quote unquote too left? Right? Like, could Bernie Sanders or even AOC be the Democratic nominee for president, or would they be too polarizing? I don't know. It's not. I'm asking the question.
It's a lost cause.
I'd be curious to know what real talkers would say in the context of like AOC is formidable.
Sure.
Like she's very, very good at what she does, and she's polarizing, as most excellent politicians are. You love them or you hate them. Whether or not she'd be the right choice, I don't know. I mean, obviously they can kind of burn it to the ground right now.
Yeah. Why do we have to love them or hate them, though? Maybe I'm just getting old and I just want a lukewarm glass of water. Like, those
aren't the politicians.
I don't want
resonate.
Trump yelling. I don't want AOC yelling. I don't want Bernie Sanders spitting across the table. I don't want RFK grumbling. Can I just get like a Stuart Smalley type politician with some, just real policy, trying to help us, and just talk to me calm on the TV.
I don't know that can win these days, and I hate to admit it.
You guys are good enough. You're smart enough.
Doggone it.
Doggone it. we're going to make it.
Yeah, I mean, there have been successful politicians that were not absolute jerks.
No, but my
sure.
point is, like, it seems like it's just always a dogfight. It's like who's incumbent, who's current, and who can go up and just tear them down. And that's the whole goal of campaigns now, is like who can tear the next person down. It's like, and that's what I'm saying, especially with our campaign here in Canada right now. The election's going on, and I say this all the time. I'm no political expert. I'm just an everyday guy who watches the TV and is like, hears the same things over and over, and is just getting so desensitized to it that I want someone to make me feel relaxed. And I feel like all politics on this side, of the globe, in the Northern Hemisphere, they're making me feel anxiety every day. I just want someone calm, who's intelligent, who wants to help people. That's all I want.
I think you can't be alone in feeling that way. And you want.
Well, Tracy in the chat says I need to stop saying everybody because I don't speak for everybody. But I think everybody wants affordable health care, affordable dental, affordable education for their kids, affordable housing. I think that everyone, the general middle class, most people want those things.
Yeah. It's just where it is on the priorities. If you're bringing home $750,000 a year, affordable education is not top on your list of priorities because you take that for granted.
Yeah.
In that circumstance, Jagmeet referenced, the capital gains taxes. That's more of a concern for that crew. Everyone's got their different priorities, but at the same time, you can look at Canada's or Canadians' commonly held values. Yeah. And he's not wrong. When you start to mess with healthcare, education, clean water, for the most part, these are the things that'll get people all fired up. I like this thought from Scarlett in the chat. Says, if your people flourish, your country flourishes. It's simple.
Yeah. Like, my fear is for the future, not for mine. Cause I'm in my career. My days of learning and growing aren't over, but you know what I mean? I'm middle-aged. I'm concerned about kids in the future, and like, people just what's that movie these guys always tell me in the chat where everyone's idiots? That's where I feel like we're heading with AI and with the lack of affordable education.
Mallrats?
No, it's in the future where like they put Gatorade on the plants, and I feel so scared for, like, I want to be. I want the future generations to be intelligent. I want them to be smarter than all of us. I want them to lead us into the future. And I feel like, we're all on phones, we're all fighting, and, I'm kind of getting in the weeds here, but like with the debates, you've got Carney and Poilievre and then Singh in the middle being like, let's talk about people. And they're like Trump and oil. And I know oil, it's big deal, and exports and imports and all that. But, they're just going back and forth about the gorillas in the room, the elephants in the room, and Singh's in the middle yelling about, like, why are we talking about the people? You know what I mean?
Yeah. 100%. Live chat, interesting insights here. Chelsea the Ginge says politicians rather make you feel anxious because if the other side wins, the sky is going to fall.
It's not even like
from
that.
Chelsea the Ginge.
I'm not. It's not like all the right wing politicians make me nervous. They all do. All of them. I feel like no one's a centrist anymore. Everyone's on one side or the other.
The mushy middle. We had a request, by the way, for Real Talk mushy middle merch, which I thought could be good. Emily in the chat says Pete Buttigieg would be good, too, as the the next nominee for president. We're talking a lot about Americans right now, and we are 5 days out from a federal election right here in Canada. Yeah. And I know that a lot of you wish we were talking less about the United States, but the fact of the matter is this relationship is
it hedges
not traveling to the United States right now, but you do have. I'm going to calm you down.
Oh.
How about some soothing music?
Soothe me.
How about something we can all agree on, regardless of who you vote for? Can we shine a light on the crown jewel that is Jasper National Park? Every week, our friends at Tourism Jasper give us a chance to talk to you about MyJasper Memories, the memories, the experiences, the opportunities that lie in wait in Jasper National Park. And right now, they've got a phenomenal festival set to roll out. This is the Jasper Mural Festival, the UpLift Jasper Mural Festival. How cool is this? For the fourth installment, starting on May 1st, they're kicking off the countdown as we speak, with a look back at the 12 murals that have transformed Jasper since 2022, starting with the one that got it all started by the one and only Calum Take It Dan. The festival born to uplift the community of Jasper They've got a fantastic post on Instagram. Check this out, Johnny. I'm showing it on my screen. You can follow uplift.fest.jasper on Instagram. We'll link to it in the show notes. But these murals have done wonders for just the pedestrian experience in Jasper. Obviously, the impact that murals have on the visitor experience, it's hard to put into words, but you can see them, these remarkable art installations, different depictions, different interpretations. We're looking at one by Alex Kwong right now. I absolutely love that one. Don't you wish you could paint like this? And I'm always blown away by what mural artists can do.
Oh, yeah.
Like on these huge, large-scale installations.
It's never
There's
too
one
late to learn, Ryan.
Tyler Taves. Oh, dude. If you saw what I'm just absolutely useless. But not these artists. Just phenomenal stuff. Look at that buck looking up at the stars. Phenomenal. This year from May 1st till the 18th, they're excited to introduce you, organizers are, to 3 new artists, 3 new walls. So new stories, new faces, and new perspectives. All week long, they'll be revealing this year's artists and mural locations. We'll keep you posted. Plus, you can check them out, as mentioned, on Instagram as they get ready to kick off summer with paint and positivity, John. There it is. Paint and positivity.
I'm going.
This is the UpLift Jasper Mural Festival from the 1st of May all the way through to the 18th. Plus, Jasper.travel, a fantastic resource. If you're thinking of maybe a last-minute getaway to Jasper, maybe you're feeling inspired right now. You've canceled your trip to Disneyland. Did you see that story, by the way? Disney says they're really feeling the pinch right now because Canadians are not going down there. So you got a few extra bucks in your pocket. You want to get the family away. Maybe you got some cabin fever in the opposite way. You need to get out to a cabin. Get out to Jasper, the cabin capital of Canada. On April 26th, they're almost sold out, but they've got the Jasper Half Marathon going this weekend. The Taste of Spring is running concurrently, so amazing culinary experiences and live music. I know I can't call Jasper a venue. It's a town, but it's the best live music venue in Canada. I'm going to say that. You go check out live. There's live music in a number of different bars, a number of different venues, and you can make your way walking between each of them, staring up at the sky. Honestly, I get chills just thinking about some of the amazing nights we've had out there. And wait, there's more, John.
What?
Up until May 4th, our friends are keeping the skiing wide open at Marmot Basin. They've still got snow. They've got phenomenal spring conditions. And did you know, if you have a pass from another mountain, they'll let you ski Marmot at 50% off. How cool is that? So regardless of where you're hearing this from, regardless of where you're seeing this, BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, or beyond, get yourself and your family, your loved ones out to Jasper this weekend. Make your own MyJasper Memories. You can learn more. Get the vacation planning started at jasper.travel, skimarmot.com. And of course, we want to see your MyJasper Memories. Make sure you tag us in your posts. MyJasper Memories, presented weekly on Real Talk by our friends at Tourism Jasper.
Oh, that's very calming.
You feel better?
Let's go to this picture now.
Dwayne says,
No, just kidding.
What do you think of the Brantford Boomer? I
I
didn't
don't
ask
know.
you about this guy.
I think I don't agree with the message, but I think I might like to have a couple drinks with this guy. I bet he's a fireball.
I bet that guy feels like the biggest idiot right now.
Oh, he does.
Because
maybe not. I mean, that generation, does he even care about social media? Probably not.
Well, and I think that maybe certain generations underestimate the power of something going viral.
Yeah.
You know, I think like these days, if somebody's like holding their phone up to you as there's a confrontation occurring, you're in your best interest, if you're potentially on the wrong side of it, to stop immediately.
Well, anytime. That's what you're taught since you're kids, like to walk away from confrontation, right? But nowadays especially, and it does seem to be, and this is nothing against like older generations, but it does seem to be them that like forget, you know, and lose their cool. I think younger generations know that you could be expelled from the face of the earth.
Yeah.
In other words, for losing your cool on camera, right? But it's also it's kind of like it's like we're all in jail, right? We're all being watched all the time. I don't like it, but it's society right now. It's the truth.
Yeah. This is Super Chat Ken says maybe he's just counting to 2. But here's the thing. I don't necessarily think that, like, we don't know the context of the photo, right? Like Karima Saad, who posted this, she's been on the show before, but she is a provocateur for sure. Like she inserts herself into situations in a way that not many Canadian pundits do, and it pays off with publicity. She was trending across Canada on X, on Twitter last night. But I don't think it's just because of the photo. Like, her photo went viral, this guy giving her the double banger. Like, who knows? Maybe she said to him, screw off, Boomer, right before, and he gave her this, and then all of a sudden the photo's going.
Yeah.
But I think it was that Jacob fella when I narrated his video. I think it's that. I think it's when people take a photo and then say, this photo represents this perspective, and then that resonates with
millisecond in someone's
millions of people,
of course,
right? And then it all of a sudden goes and takes off.
I also think, like, a lot of people's life goal nowadays, some of them are in the chat. No, I'm just kidding. But everybody, like, their goal is to get out there first thing in the morning, get on social media, go to places where things are happening and trigger people, right?
Yeah.
And those are the people I just despise the most. And I know some people say, well, this person triggers me, and maybe it's just their opinion or whatever. But there are people who are specifically out there. I mean, we saw it at the debates, these so-called reporters asking questions, and believe me, I'm not a journalist, but I know when something stinks, and when someone's trying to get a rise out of someone, not to inform the public or make a conversation just to get, a clip. And again, I feel like a hypocrite because we like clips here on the show too. We like people to get emotional, whatever. But I just feel like there's people who are out in the world today, and their one goal every day is to piss people off, perhaps capture it on camera and ruin their lives. And it's just like, this is your career? This is what you get up in the morning to do? If you're making money at it, okay, but like, how do you sleep at night? How do you feel good about anything? I don't know. Maybe it's my inner brain and my anxiety. I just wouldn't be able to do it.
Ms. KD says that guy, the Brantford Boomer, we're not using his real name, by the way, because I'm not trying to like dox the guy.
And Boomer is a bit of a, I know these days people don't
Boomer.
like it.
That's Boomer.
It's the
is
generation
like,
name.
they're called
Yeah,
baby boomers,
name.
and I get it. Like, any word can become a pejorative with tone.
Well,
right? Like millennials.
When you're trying to trigger someone, and
millennials,
your only reply to a debate is "Okay, Boomer."
Yeah,
that's
fair enough.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel bad for every Karen out there, right? Like, my childhood crush was a Karen. I'm serious. I'm serious. I feel bad for Karens.
Oh, I thought you meant like I feel bad for people who are being Karens.
No,
for actual names.
No, for actual Karens.
Humans.
Like Karen Bont, who now lives in New Zealand. And I'm happily married, by the way, and Karen's not the one that got away, except for kinda. But just kidding. She was my childhood crush. And when I think of every time someone goes, okay, Karen, I think of, my pal Karen Bont, my grade 5 crush. Yeah. Poor gal, and all the other Karens out there that have had their names commandeered.
And now it's for the guys, it's the Chads. The Chads out there
Absolutely.
Now, they're getting it. And it's like, man, I feel bad for all
Ms. KD says the Brantford Boomer should not feel like, she doesn't call him that, by the way, I'm calling him that, says he shouldn't feel like an idiot, says you guys should be playing the video with the woman antagonizing people in the line at the Carney event, walking back and forth with the fuck Carney flag. 80s Fanify says the man's a hero to me. M. Aitken reminding us all, how did I not ask Gil about this? M. Aitken, that's 5 points for you on the Real Talk scoreboard. I remember I asked him about this on the radio. Gil and I have obviously done 30 interviews over the years, but check this out. You remember this? Gil McGowan, flashing the bird. This was M. Aitken, you've just earned 5 points on the Real Talk scoreboard. What a missed opportunity.
What I'm saying. What a contrast,
this was Gil McGowan being antagonized by Western Standard, Derek Fildebrandt's media outlet.
Yeah, of course.
So Western Standard bureau chief Arthur Green, Gil gifted him this photo, giving him the bird.
So there you go.
But I also know that
just
Gil,
had Gil on. He was talking about great things that affect the community and, sticking up for workers' rights and stuff like that. And then you could show this photo and erase all the good things we talked about on the show today.
Yeah. Blah Sheep says, I talked to some boomers in person on my daily duties for work. One said that Trump should be unalived. The other believed that Carney is the greatest savior. And they say it's because TV told them so.
Yeah. We're too desensitized to ask for, like, I see stuff online about people on the left, people on the right, politicians, Trump, Carney, everyone, Poilievre, where like, I hope their plane goes down and things like that. And I'm just like, whoa.
Yeah.
We are in a whole new world right now. And Vicky Mochama talks about the extremism of not only the world right now, but just of the year 2025. She was talking about it yesterday, and go check out her podcast at Party All the Time. But just how everything is just, it's like we were just talking about, Ryan. I just want things to cool a bit. And somebody said in the chat, well, you were up in arms and saying it was amazing when Trudeau was in here giving all the fire and pounding on the table. Yeah, that's because I hadn't seen it for 8 years. Yeah. And I want people to be engaged and dramatic and passionate. But I also, I just don't understand how you get up every day and be like that. And your one goal is to, bring down other people every day. Because, people are going to do that on their own. We're all imperfect. We're going to make mistakes. Cameras are everywhere.
Please do us a favor, and I don't know why I said it like that. Do yourself a favor and subscribe to Vicky's podcast.
Oh, it's
Party
amazing.
All the Time,
Yeah.
Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can watch her episodes on our Real Talk YouTube channel as well. Thanks to our subscribers there.
We didn't even talk about it this week, but we should. They do a segment at the end where they basically give a thumbs up or thumbs down for something that's been in the news that week, and it's always the best part of the show. Wait till the end of the show. It's the last 5-10 minutes. And this week, they kind of stole each other's, but they had to go all around. But I just thought it was awesome that we haven't talked about it yet, but we have to. The women who went to space and how ridiculous
Katy Perry
was, and just the biggest dorks in the world, if I can use any kind of insult that is an insult. But and people could say why are you coming down on women going to these women aren't astronauts. Bezos sent them into space for 10 minutes. They came back down. Katy Perry was floating up there with a daisy. This is not. Remember, and Vicky says this on the show, remember when NASA, when you were a kid, was just the coolest thing? Going to space and being an astronaut was the coolest job on the planet.
Yeah, dude.
It was the most renowned thing to be a part of. And especially American astronauts, it was just you just looked up to them and there was just a halo above them. And now it's we've got Elon and Bezos and who's the other guy from Virgin?
Oh, yeah, Richard Branson.
It's just space has been exploited to where it just sucks now, man. It just
I don't know. I will reserve judgment on that because I think that opening up space to transport and tourism and all those types of things is a fascinating opportunity for people. Of course. It will obviously be limited to people who have more money than God, obviously, and so that will always prove to be polarizing. But I'm optimistic. I actually think. People call it oftentimes the commercialization of space. Space pollution is a thing that we'll probably do a show on at some point. But I think I'm still inspired by all of it.
Putting Katy Perry's music in space is pollution.
Oh, poor Katy Perry. Why is
I'm kidding. She had her hits.
Katy Perry can do whatever she wants.
But coming back down and kissing the ground, what are you doing? You didn't train. You're not an astronaut. You didn't train for.
But who cares?
And isn't the whole goal of space? And Vicky, I'm not going to say this is my thought because I'm taking this from Vicky as well. Party All the Time. Go subscribe to the pod. It's amazing conversation. She said, remember when space exploration was we need to find another home. We need to find a plan B. We need to find life other than ourselves. Now it's about we need to just, prove to flat earthers that it's round and go up there and have fun. It's just like you said, we're polluting space.
I've moved on from trying to prove anything to flat earthers. Lauren has a bit of a compliment here, I think, for you, John. Says you're much more engaging as a blonde.
Yes.
You've come.
They have more fun, Ryan.
You're 10% more alive. We got some emails yesterday about your hot boy summer comment. Everybody's excited about this. Wants to know
Kenny.
If your Instagram's gonna. You and Kenny. That was at the Grindstone Theater.
Remember that?
Oh yeah, I do remember it. They asked me to cameo in it. I said I don't know if that's the right fit.
But we should talk about it. Maybe we'll get some flamethrowers about it. We'll throw some pics up because all this week we've been so busy with election.
Yeah.
But I wanted to mention that.
I'm glad you did.
It bothers me.
Tony, she says, oh, come on. Nobody said anything negative when William Shatner went up to space. Women always have to take this shit. She says, I think it was
I knew
stupid.
that would happen. This is nothing against women. This is against... it's against billionaires just having more access to things that we like I just said, when I was a kid, man, everyone wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to be. It was just the coolest job ever. And now it's just been reduced to.
Last time I said this, I got in a whole bunch of shit. But you know what? Life's not fair. Because it's still as true now as it was when I said it the first time. Life's not fair.
Do you regard any of these women, and I'm going to stop saying women, just any human that goes to space in this capacity, like that you're fascinated by them now, that they have somehow leveled up? Like Katy Perry is on some other level now because she went to space for 9 or 10 or 11 minutes. Like it just...
It's not like I'm trying to think of the...
It just seems to me like a waste of money.
Well, yeah, but
and a waste of it. Just, I mean, look at the look at the response online as well. It was just like, all over every social platform was just like, this is. And here's the last thing I'll say, because it got overshadowed. I was going to mention it at the start. Just the tone of everything going on in the world today. Like everything we should be striving for, everything going on with geopolitics, everything that you chose this moment in time to just go up and have a go around the outer stratosphere.
It kind of reminds me of obviously not the stories. There's no similarity in thank God that nobody died, but it kind of reminds me of that Ocean Gate disaster. You remember that? The submersible, they were going down to see Titanic.
They mentioned this on Vicky's Spot as well.
Oh, do they? Yeah,
well, they just mentioned how it'd be scary to do this nowadays.
Like the thing just crumples and people, I know that to some degree, there was, I hate to put it this way, but there was some glee, right? Like there was, remember the world kind of watched as we weren't sure what the fate of those folks would be. Remember the billionaire and his son were in there? Mm-hmm. I'm going off the top of my head based on what I remember about the story. The guy, the owner of the company who had kind of ignored some warnings about the feasibility of his watercraft, took the people down, and then we later discovered that it had basically imploded and that they would have been killed instantly. But it's the same sort of a thing. Like billionaires are going to do billionaire things. I saw one of the. I always tell you all about the Instagram accounts that I follow. Best account I follow on Instagram, Nature is Metal. Make sure you follow that if you want to see real life nature happening before your very eyes. Very tough to watch, some of it. That's the point. Yeah. This is the real world. Another one of my favorite follows is the Yacht Fella. And this guy posts videos of the world's most ostentatious, ridiculous yachts. Yeah. And is it Sergey Brin, I think is his name, one of the co-founders of Google. And he posted just yesterday. It's this video pan of this yacht of the co-founder of Google. Yeah. And it's like, you can't even fathom it. Yeah. You can't even wrap. And it's what do they call it? It's docked or it's moored or whatever you call it. It's like see, I'm not a yacht guy. Although if you have a yacht, I will come on your yacht.
I think docked is. Yeah.
It's docked, whatever it is. And I'm looking at, like, you can see cars parked near it, and it gives you a sense of the size of this yacht. And you imagine the cost of what it would cost to run that thing. To even
see Kevin O'Leary on his yacht.
You got to staff that thing. Are we going to get into Kevin O'Leary? Is Kevin O'Leary really if I'm Kevin O'Leary, I'm staying as far away from boats as possible until this thing blows over.
But I'm glad you mentioned that. That's why I brought up this whole space thing as well, because the thought I was transferring from was a lot of people, when these women went up into space, were like, licking their chops and hoping that it exploded. And even though I disagree with I thought it was the dorkiest thing ever. I'll use the word dorky, so I stay away from any kind of insult. It was just the dorkiest thing ever. I still would never get online and be like, I hope these women perish. You know what I mean? And there were a lot of people putting that out in the world. And I was like, this is the world we're living in nowadays, where people are hoping, people's planes go down and spaceships blow up and submarines never are found.
I think we need to give our heads a shake if that, you know what I mean? I think this is a fair comment. How about this from LT, who says, agreed, life's not fair, but it's how you play the hand you're dealt. That's what matters. I like that. Chris is the classic example.
Let's help
Chris
people
Smalls
get better
today,
hands
right?
from the get.
But Chris Smalls today, Chris Smalls has shown, like, I'm a big poker guy. Like Chris Smalls was dealt the Doyle Brunson. Are you familiar with the story? One of poker's all-time greats. Doyle Brunson is like on the Mount Rushmore of poker pros, and he's famous for playing a 10-2 hand, which is like in statistically one of the worst hands you can possibly have in poker, but through the course of his career, it's weird. It's like people that'll tell you that every time they look up at a clock, it's 11:11 or it's 12:34, 1, 2, 3, 4. Like people that like things happen, and there's something weird about the Doyle Brunson. He plays these 10-2s to championships all the time. He's a master at his craft.
Yeah.
And Chris was dealt the Doyle Brunson.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Black man in America, his words, single parent family, dad incarcerated his entire life. And look what he's done.
Yeah.
Like when LT talks about how you play the hand you're dealt, that's exactly case in point.
100%. And I understand that adversity can shape people. I know that diamonds are made under pressure. But, you know, they're also on the other end of the spectrum where you have, you know, not billions of dollars, but when you have, you know, access to all the things people should have when they grow up, you know, place to lay your head, you can afford food, you can afford to go to school, things like that. So I get it. If the argument is everyone should start from the depths of the trenches, I don't agree. But I do agree that it shapes people. Yeah.
It's been a while since we've done a 2-hour episode. Sorry, not sorry, everybody, but we hope you enjoyed this. We just, as things were coming together, we realized that we had an opportunity to do a show with obviously a bit more of a progressive bend, but regardless of how you vote or where you lean, I hope that you took something from it in a way that left you curious, maybe more enlightened. Maybe your bucket was filled by something that you saw or heard on the show today. We'd love to hear from it. To talk at RyanJespersen.com. And as Johnny mentioned, if you are all kinds of fired up, we're taking submissions, as we do every week, for the Flamethrower, presented Fridays by our friends at the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. Your hottest takes, Real Talkers' hottest takes. It could be election-related. It could be something completely unrelated to politics whatsoever. A chance to blow off steam in front of the Real Talk audience. Coming up on our next episode of the show, we're going to check in with author and columnist Tristan Hopper. He's got a new book out, Don't Be Canada: How One Country Did Everything Wrong All at Once. My number one thought is, isn't this the wrong time to release a book like that when everyone's rallying underneath the flag? We'll ask him. Plus, our friends from iHuman, young artists from Edmonton's inner city, joining us in studio. Friday, Shannon and Ken are back, plus a roundtable on fertility. We'll see you then.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jespersen. Executive producer Josh Dunford. Technical producer John Hicks. General manager Katie Cook-Chivers. Account coordinator Lawrence Derlego. Human resources Lena Shepard. Website design Mike Johnston. Voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi, Ahmed Ali, Brandy Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harmon Candola, Catherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out RyanJespersen.com.